My name is Eliana, and this is PD Micro Session number 1. Today we are going to be talking about some learner-centered strategies for emergent bilinguals. I would first like to start off by asking, what is your experience or what do you know about emergent bilinguals or ELLs? And what do you wonder? Our learning goals for today are that hopefully by the end of this PD, teachers will be able to get to know their students through culturally responsive instruction. They will make content comprehensible and accessible, and they will create a language-rich environment for their students. First off, getting to know your students. This is one of the most important yet basic steps that we as educators can take to help our ELLs and our emergent bilinguals. I have noticed that even amongst my students who are at the beginning stages of learning English are able to share information about themselves, their families, and any experiences they may have had. And the key to making lessons learner-centered is getting to know them. And some of the strategies for this are learning and getting their names right, knowing your students and implementing personal information interviews, and implementing and creating positive negative graphs. So first off, getting to know their names. Knowing your students also means learning how to pronounce their names correctly. When we do this, we convey the message to them that we care, that we accept them, and that they are very important, and most of all, that they belong. When we do this, we are modeling behavior and that we can cultivate a classroom climate that is equitable and fair to them. So one thing and one example of this is having students express and create their names by creating a name badge. This typically includes symbols that are representative of their identity and who they are. Here are two examples. If we notice they have, like cultural background characteristics, it can also even include any interests that they may have. And I have done this. This was the first year that I've done this with my ELLs, and I noticed that they really enjoyed doing this, and they even, if they were up to it, they were able to present it to their class and talk a little bit about what they incorporated and why, allowing us to, one, hear how they pronounce their name correctly, and two, we get to know a little bit about them. Another thing that we can include when getting to know our students is including a personal information interview. When we gather information about our students, it allows us to know more information in regards to their interests and helps us incorporate interests into future lessons. So one example of this, as I said, is a personal information interview. Students would be paired up. They would fill out personal information for their partner, and then they would present it to the classroom and tell us what they learned about their classmate, their friend, their peer. That way we are all able to know and learn more about our students along with everyone else. Another thing that we can include is a positive negative graph. So for this, one example is that they would list important events in their lives and place them on a negative positive graph. It encourages students to think about their lives and events that influence them, and I think this is a really great way to incorporate a learner-centered activity because we are able to gain insight into their lives. We are able to know a little bit more about them in depth, about great events and the maybe not so great events that shaped our students into who they are. Another learning goal that we could focus on is to make content comprehensible for our emergent bilingual students. Typically, they are able to learn English and acquire the language through an organized approach. Some strategies consist of using gestures and body language, using interactive modeling, and using graphic organizers. So, in order to make content comprehensible for our emergent bilinguals, one example of a great strategy is implementing physical responses because it helps link language with action and it helps to drive their memory. Some of these can be body gestures, body language, TPR, which is total physical response. And we saw this being exemplified in the chickenpox video where the teacher, Mr. Scott, was singing a song, but as he was singing, he was pointing to his body parts, and students were able to join in and able to connect that language to their physical body, which I think is a great way. I know I do this with all my students as well, and they really enjoy this. And it is a great learner-centered activity because they are actively demonstrating their knowledge in real time. Another way we can make content comprehensible is by implementing interactive modeling. Basically, it is a straightforward, quickly paced process that's effective for teaching children an academic or social skill, routine, procedure that you want them to do in a specific way. We saw this being exemplified in one of the videos that we had, and the teacher was she picked out two students. They were doing a science project, and the students had to model what to do, how to do it, what was the correct way. And they were able to demonstrate that to the rest of their peers, so that way the students were actively learning, not just through examples, but they were learning through actual manipulatives with the actual hands-on materials that they would need, and were able to see it while it was being exemplified. Another way we can make content comprehensible is by implementing graphic organizers. These are extremely useful for emergent bilinguals and are basically tailored to reinforce a relationship between concepts because they help visualize similarities and differences between concepts and ideas. We saw this being exemplified in one of the videos we also saw where the students were being asked to draw similarities and differences between burros tortillas and the little red hen. They were able to see visually how they are different, how they are the same as well. Another way we can incorporate a language-rich environment is to have them be exposed to print and language. And we do this by creating a language-rich environment. And what this basically means is that students would have access to books and materials and labels that are in their language as well as English. This can include posters as well. But some strategies for this are the utilization of cognates, using and implementing sentence frames, and using the student's home's language as a resource. So in order to create a language-rich environment, one great strategy is to use cognates. Cognates are very useful and can help bridge and aid in second language acquisition. This is one personal example of mine that I do with my students. I typically give students cognate cards that are in English and in Spanish or whatever other language they have. But they will sort words and I will pair the students and they are to find the words on the cards that are common and similar. And then they are supposed to discuss what similarities they see and find. I also do this with false cognates. I have them see and point out how they are similar, but I also have them talk and discuss how they are different in terms of meaning. Another way that we can create a language-rich environment is by implementing sentence frames. These are a great way to help our bilingual students because they provide supports by helping them with class discussions, and it helps boost up participation as well as facilitate their writing. One example of this is my personal as well. I had students watch and hear a read aloud about Helen Keller. They were to answer questions, and it may be a little bit too small to see, but I provided them, me and my teammates or my co-teachers, we implemented sentence frames, sentence starters. Um, this really can help boost some of the writing. And even in class discussions, we usually have them up so that that way students are able to just repeat after us that first beginning sentence frame and then plug in their answer. And we saw that as well in one of the videos that we saw. There was a read aloud, and students were given a little interactive sentence frame that they would hold and read off and then just plug in their answer as well. Finally, we can also continue to create a language rich environment by allowing them to show us what they know, by allowing them to use their home language. Students' native language are a valuable resource that we should tap into and utilize as often as we can when permit. Yeah. So one example of this is mine is once again, I had my students, um, I allowed her to write in her home language. Um, it just made the whole material and curriculum accessible to her. And we saw this being exemplified too in Ms. Santiago Chapman's video, where she talked about how she provides resources in home languages. And one example that she did was allowing them to write their journal entries in their home language. This is a really great, useful strategy to implement. And these are my sources. And finally, I would like to end this PD with an open-ended question, which is, what did you learn? And if there's anything, or was there anything on here that you may have utilized in the classroom without realizing? That is it for my PD, and hopefully you were able to have some takeaways or learn some very useful strategies that you can implement in the future for your emergent bilinguals. Thank you.